James Carville opens nominations for Crowdsourced Trump Collaborators list, who he's not saying should have their heads shaved and be spit on. Democratic strategist and commentator James Carville said on his podcast this week that he's accepting nominations for a master list of collaborators and traitors that have worked with President Donald Trump, comparing those people to Nazi collaborators in France during World War II. Speaking on his Politicon podcast on Friday, the frequent CNN and MSNBC guest first used law firms and corporations helping or sucking up to Trump as examples for the type of traitors he was referring to that could face future retribution. Do you know what's going to happen? Do you know how this ends? He said. Do you know these collaborators, what the country are going to feel toward collaborators with this regime? Maybe you need to go in history and see what happened in August of 1944 after Paris was liberated. They didn't take very kindly to the collaborators. No, it was not a very pretty sight in the streets of Paris. Carville then said he's definitely not saying that these people should be placed in pajamas and have their heads shaved, march down Pennsylvania Avenue and spit on. I'm not saying that, he insisted. He also said he can only guess what form such traitors' comeuppance will take. As the podcast continued, Carville returned, as he'd done at the opening of the podcast, to mixing individual clownish, couillon, stupid, jackass people in with the firms and corporations, and opened the floor to nominations for a list of those enemies to be a sort of hall of fame of treasonous collaborators. I think I'm going to start here as we go forward and give you a little bit of time, but we should have a collaborators hall of fame. There's some people that just stick out as, in my view, particularly treasonous, Carville said. Maybe we'll have a system where we can, vote people in. He singled out the law firm of Davis Polk and billion-dollar retail and tech company Amazon as potential nominees for the list. We'll be accepting nominations, Carville decided, and he invited anyone to make nominations of anyone they believe to be treasonous or a collaborator with the regime, saying that the preliminary list should be out a little bit later in the year. Carville's invitation for Americans to report other Americans as traitors did not result in any major social media outrage, though other outrages on social media were a part of the overall news on Saturday. We'll continue to talk about Trump and the clownish, couillon, stupid, jackass people that he surrounded himself with. And we're going to continue talking about collaborators. I think I'm going to start here as we go forward and give you a little bit of time, but we should have a collaborators hall of fame. There's some people that just stick out as, in my view, particularly treasonous, but we're going to work on that. Maybe we'll have a system where we can, vote people in, or, we can vote the Davis Polk in people if you want. Maybe you can vote the Amazon people, the $41 million bribe to Melania Trump, or the rerunning of The Apprentice. Give me a break. But we'll be accepting nominations. We're not in a hurry, but we want to get our appeasement, Collaborator Hall of Fame, up and running at some point. And I'll be looking at your comments, and feel free to make nominations. And if we go a little bit later into the year, we'll have our initial Hall of Fame inductees.